Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me once again. This is Eugene Sachs for GameCritics.com. Today we have something a little different. I initially was looking through a lot of the Summer Game Fest stuff, and one in particular kind of caught my eye when it was initially announced here. This was on the Frosty Games Showcase. And by all means, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that's where you guys were first coming up here. But it was initially with a streamer called No Hands NZ, and they had praised this game and the developers as far as their accessibility items and their kind of openness for how they were addressing accessibility for this game. So I wanted to go ahead and give it a look, and this really quickly became a game that I am really excited about here as well. So reached out to them, and they were both more than happy to sit down here with me a little bit to talk about their game Key Fairy. Tex Barnes and Niosis, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, of course. So let's go ahead and do the kind of easy questions here right off the top. We'll go ahead, either one of you who would like to start, can you go ahead and just give me a quick history from you both here? What is your background in games? What got you into gaming as a hobby? And kind of what are your roles here for Key Fairy?
Yeah, do you want to start with that, Niosis?
Yeah, sure. So I guess my history is that I got into like independent game development pretty early on. I've been actually into this since like high school. So like yeah, I got really enchanted with all the beautiful art that was coming out of the independent scene, and like all of the kind of stranger approaches to game development. And ended up pursuing it from there. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't make games until like 5 years ago, and then I got really into the like micro rapid development game jam space.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to make tiny little focused experiences, and have then worked backwards into making larger things.
Yeah, we both kind of just like ended up going from like little small things to like slowly spiraling out to this.
Very cool. Very cool. So if memory serves here from kind of what I'm seeing here on the game, Tex, you're kind of the, I guess, kind of head for programming, and then Niosis, you're kind of more of the art side of this game for Key Fairy. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent.
But with a studio of this size, we sort of just wiggle around in different roles.
Yeah, I mean like yeah, Tex does a whole bunch of the like graphics programming stuff, and I do every now and then like do a bit of programming of other things,
Yeah.
so it kind of mixes and matches.
Yeah, with a team of two, that makes sense. Both of you gotta wear a lot of hats, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Sounds good. Well, talk to me about Key Fairy. Like, what was the initial inspiration for it?
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, I feel like a lot of it came out of specifically the idea of trying to make a game that explores like the theme of non-violence and how you make a game that is like energetic and fun to play in a kind of action-oriented way, but that isn't just about like reskinning violence and like trying to communicate pacifism through the response that your character has to violence itself.
Okay.
Yeah. It's from taking stuff away, right? Like, bullet hells are a very action-heavy genre and all about like shooting things. But if you actually play a shoot 'em up or a bullet hell, you just sort of hold down the attack button and then dodge, and so you can just entirely refocus the game around evasion. And then you get all of this different story stuff that can come out of it because you're now playing this character who's constantly defensive and never really attacks.
Yeah, there are plenty of bullet hells where like shooting is so default that you don't even need to press a button for it. So if you're not pressing a button for it, you could just skip it entirely. It was a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So that kind of went into my immediate next question there as well. So it sounds as far as like, because exactly like you said, bullet hells, I always think of it as, lots of bullets on screen. You're shooting at everything all the time. And it sounds like, and definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of the idea as far as making it that pacifist style was kind of I guess trying to break that norm of bullet hells, like specifically making it with a pacifist focused. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think good games ask questions about genre and about like design. And I think ultimately one of the big questions we're asking is like, do you need to be a character who's constantly attacking? Does that actually add to the experience? And I think that's what we're sort of exploring in the game. But there is still a lot of like attacks on screen at points. It's just not your attacks.
Hmm. Yeah, there was a part of the demo where you're facing a couple of, I guess we'll call them ranged characters because I'm not sure of their exact name, but like the
Mm.
witches that kind of shoot out little bullets at you, and then
Yeah.
one of the giant cubes that just throws itself around the arena. And that one, I got stuck on that for quite a bit of time.
Yeah. It gets pretty hard. I mean, like, so a lot of pacifist games, a lot of non-violent games are really, really cozy. It's like you'll play The Sims or something, and it's like you're just chilling, and that's great. And I like that experience, but I really like really paced, frenetic games, and I struggle to get that experience without a character who's just going through the world, stabbing everything with their big sword. Um,
Speaking of the big sword, the one that you specifically call out, no, you don't attack with it. It is a sword.
yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah. We were trying to come up with ideas for the game, and early on we were like, "Oh, you know what'd be hilarious, right? Is you get a sword, and then the sword it's just for dashing. Like it's just like
yeah,
you become a Dark Souls protagonist, but only the dodge roll part. Uh,
It's so good.
um,
I love it. And it is such a unique way too, because it is this like, especially compared to like your main character, it feels like a massive sword, and it's only half a sword because it's broken when you initially get it, right? And the entire
yeah,
point is like, hey, no, this is a sword. It gives you the option to move around more, but you don't attack with it. You specifically do not attack with it.
yeah. The whole focus is on movement. Like that's the name of the game. Is just how can you move in more complicated and interesting ways? Because if you're taking away the ability to attack, you need to replace it with something.
Mm,
Because otherwise, it just feels like it's less game. And I think we've replaced it with a more complicated movement system where you've got a really floaty character, and then you've got a grappling hook, and then you've got a dash ability on top of that, and it just becomes exponentially a really high skill ceiling for
right.
movement.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Like I know when I was starting it, I was kind of just using the grapple hook and hooking onto the environment as far as like any of the walls and just trying
Mm.
doing like the straight line kind of around. But definitely in some of the like the trailers and that are on your guys' Steam page, easily like yeah, hook onto the enemy and just swing around them. You can do that. Nothing's stopping you. It's except for your skill.
Yeah, I mean that's why they drop stars. Initially the idea was like maybe you just wait them out and then they
Mhm.
calm down. But having them drop stars forces you to get really close to them. And so now you're constantly trying to not get hit whilst getting as close as physically possible to the monsters.
Yeah.
So you can collect the stars that they drop before they despawn. Which weirdly makes it like in a lot of ways it makes it play harder than a traditional bullet hell where you're constantly trying to like back away from everything and get into your little safe space.
Mhm.
um yeah. Mm.
Very nice. Perfect. So I want to go into the art a little bit there as well, because I first off love the art. I love the very like black and white, very stark colors, and then how when you get into combat, it does kind of encroach in a little bit. What was some of the inspiration from Uniosis as far as the art from this game and the world design?
yeah. Well, the art, like I think the big inspirations come from like old tabletop role-playing game art. Like if you look at original D&D, it's all like zines basically,
Hmm.
with this really stark, kind of sketchy ink style, as well as like, um, old medieval woodblock paintings and fairy tale books and things like that. But also a little bit because, like growing up, I've been doing a lot of art, and it's all just been like ink, traditional ink art.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we were starting this game and we had two people, we had to make this decision between like art that we could both make or just going really heavily on like a really stylized look. So I ended up becoming the dedicated artist. Um, And yeah, it's all just like things from my sketchbook that I find and then scan in. Was like the first chunk of the art. Was like literally just flicking through old sketchbooks and taking photos and editing it all up.
Gotcha. Very cool. Because I know, like, from the like Steam page and all of that, like everything is like all about like kind of a folklore and everything like that. Were you drawing inspiration from any type of folklore in particular, or just kind of a mismatch, or?
Yeah, I mean not yet. But it's basically just been like the general storytelling style that folktale has,
Mhm.
as well as like there's a lot of things that cut very close to real life fairy tales, but we've also been trying to avoid like overt references as much as possible.
Sure.
And so like there was this moment where I really wanted Sleeping Beauty, but then we ended up like reorientating. So we're trying to keep it agnostic in a way that feels a bit like timeless, but also more rooted in like, as well as like, yeah, rooted in like gothic fantasy and that kind of look of it.
Okay, understood. And yeah, I think the black and white kind of from starting is definitely a good way to invoke kind of the gothic style as well, just because that's I mean that is kind of traditional as far as the like color palette, I guess, but definitely like I'm thinking right near the end of your demo, with facing off against some of the uh like the princesses and that definitely I can see how that kind of invokes like the kind of fairy tale aspect to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like fairy tales are all like this kind of interesting mix between spooky and whimsical. And I think like Tex brings the whimsical and I bring the spooky, and it ends up like hitting the right niche.
I think a lot of people, when they're like, "Oh, fairy tales are actually a lot weirder than you think," what they mean is that like they're a lot darker. But if you
Mhm.
actually read a lot of like spoken word folklore, it's just bizarre. It's so bizarrely written in both that it's darker and that just characters act in these strange ways and talk in these strange ways that isn't really replicated in a lot of modern storytelling. And we're trying to bring some of that energy.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's very cool. It definitely gives Key Fairy a very unique style and definitely its own like unique energy. I mean, even just looking at the game, but yeah, actually sitting down and playing with it, I can definitely see that, and that's one of the things that stuck out to me with getting into it and why I really wanted to have this conversation. So, I think you knocked it out of the park with that. um,
Thank you.
but yeah, so I guess let's get into the little more of the meat and potatoes as far as kind of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation in the first place. So, like I said at the top, GameCritics.com, we go out of our way to specifically like highlight any of the accessibility functions, whether it is like for deaf and hard of hearing, as far as like captions are concerned, for any type of remappable controls or anything like that. And with such a presence there, as far as your openness to that accessibility, I guess, journey going through this game. Like I was reading a lot of your blog posts, text about the accessibility function you wanted to add it in. But tell me a little more about it. Like, what went into the planning for all of these accessibility options, and how did you prioritize different ones over the other?
Yeah, so I think accessibility seems like a big scary thing if you're developing, especially because it's something that's not really taught at university or whatever. But it's not that tricky. There's the big place is game accessibility guidelines. There's a website where a bunch of researchers have gathered a, a big long list of all of the major things that you should be looking out for. There's other stuff that's not on the list, and it's worth asking around and play testing a lot. But those are the big things to keep an eye out on, and then categorize them based on the level of impact and difficulty to implement. So a lot of the really hard things to implement also only impact an extremely small percentage of the population. But that doesn't mean they're not worth doing. It's just a thing to think about. We're trying to think about what's going to have the biggest impact for our audience, but also what's core to the experience that we're making and what elements are outside of that core experience but could be a sticking point for some players. That's a big thing to keep track of. Like
Hmm.
if if this game isn't a puzzle game, if there was a puzzle that some players were getting stuck on, they should be able to skip it because that's not core to the experience and they shouldn't be hampered from the main experience by this like random offside thing, or like a fishing mini game shouldn't be preventing you from progressing or whatever.
Yeah.
So in the initial planning phase, when we were designing the game, we thought about what the game's weaknesses would be in terms of accessibility and what its strengths would be. Because there's a lot of things that the actual design of it works in its favor. It's pretty good for colorblindness, that if the game's all black and white. It's pretty good for people who are hard of hearing, that all of the writing is just written on the screen. But then we added a bunch of random effects to the text, so we also need to provide the options to simplify the font. And it's just making a lot of lists, to be honest. It's something you should be able to have an eye for if you've spent enough time developing games, understanding what's going to be easy and what's going to be hard for you.
Yeah.
But then you just compile a list and figure out what's easy and what's going to have the most impact.
Yeah, I mean, one thing like you're talking about, like prioritization, a little part of it is, just having it in front of people, and then every now and then someone will come to us and say like, oh, I want to be into this game, but this thing is I'm having trouble with this thing. So like, the trees kind of sparkle in the background, and that sometimes that's too noisy for some people. And so, as soon as someone brings that up, then that's a pretty simple fix. And so, like, a lot of the changes have been like preemptive, but a lot of them have also been reactive to what we're seeing in front of us, and just being like open to the feedback that, like, there can be simple things that are not core to the experience, that are just some side visual thing that we put in there for fun, that doesn't need to be there always, or doesn't need to be there at all, and we can work around it, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So I'm assuming one of those was probably, at least as far as the feedback was concerned, one of the big ones from your blog post was uh, the camera and how it initially was sitting to follow the player, but now it's
Yes.
been switched to, in 99% of cases, to where it's just static for the room, right?
Yeah. So we initially had it be all static in all the rooms, and then we wanted to have larger rooms, and it made sense to have the follow camera. And we sort of got too lost in the source. I got too lost in the source. Niosis kept being like, "You don't need a follow camera in this room." I really like the follow camera because it makes it spooky. Gives it a horror game vibe in some of the rooms where you'll enter a room and then a monster will just appear.
Mm-hmm.
But that experience isn't actually core to the game, and so it's pretty reasonable to add in an option at least that for almost all of the rooms, especially any room in which you have to do an engagement where a monster's going to attack you, you should be able to lock that camera. Because it gave some people motion sickness, a small percentage of people, and there's no reason to prevent them from playing the game for that experience.
Yeah. Especially with having the grapple hook and having movement be such a core thing. I can imagine that with a moving camera, you're moving really fast. If you're like doing chain grapples and all that, yeah, I could see how that could trigger
Yeah,
some motion sickness for people.
there's still some long tunnels where at this point it makes sense to keep the follow camera, but those are places where you're just moving in a straight line and there's nothing attacking you. And so I feel like that's probably okay, but I might make it that the camera moves more linearly rather than sort of sliding around.
Okay, understood. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So kind of piggybacking off of some of the like accessibility options there. What was the specific idea behind like some of the color palettes? I know you went into a little more in depth on it on the blog post, but I'm thinking like I've seen a lot of games where if they do different modes for colorblind, like they'll specifically call out like, hey, here is this very specific type of colorblindness versus this one. Because I know there's a couple of different versions of it, right?
Yeah.
Most of the color palette options that you all have starts out black and white, which is probably pretty safe to kind of cover most vision impairments or anything like that. But then they don't necessarily have the specific, like, I guess, quote, scientific name for the colorblind.
The color palettes aren't really for color blindness because, as far as I'm aware, and we've play tested a fair amount, color blindness doesn't impact your experience of the game. The big issue with colorblindness, this is actually a general design thing if you're making a game that isn't black and white. The big issue with colorblindness is if the only thing distinguishing two states or two objects is color. And so what you generally want to do isn't just provide an option that swaps the colors, it's put symbols on things, provide audio cues, provide a bunch of additional stuff that makes it clear that these are two separate objects. And so even if
Yeah.
they look gray to a player, or if they both look the same color to a player, they'll be like, oh, this one's got a triangle on it and this one's got a square on it, so these are different.
I see.
Yeah, there's a lot of different parts. Like we're finding that there's a lot of different information that you can communicate that isn't just color, like shape and value and
Yeah.
like noise versus the opposite of noise, I guess. And then we're having to like work around. We're having to do that anyway, and so that becomes just like part of the development is making it visually clear, regardless of the colors of it.
Yeah. The value of the palettes from an accessibility point, though, is eye strain, actually. If
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to get worn out, essentially, from just this really high contrast. And so the base palettes that we've provided reduce the contrast really heavily, so you can have it be like more gray or more like blues. But then it's also just like a nice gameplay thing that you can unlock more palettes as you go along, and it makes it easier for me to play, to be honest. Being
Okay.
able to change the palette every now and again, because I do get I'm going a little bit crazy.
Yeah, an entire
Yeah.
year worth of only black and white.
Well, especially with how often you're all looking at it day in, day out, doing the
Mm,
development for it too. Like I can imagine the eye strain
yeah.
would be pretty intense.
Yeah. Whenever I look at a game that has like color, it blows my mind.
Well, very
Yeah.
cool. Was there any other big I guess accessibility thing that either made it harder to develop the rest of it for, or anything in particular that are like, oh, I like the thing that comes to mind was when you were talking a little more about some of the stuff that you were borrowing from Celeste, for instance, and the
Yeah.
speed option that you
Yeah.
implemented. I know initially it's for accessibility is like, hey, people, especially with a game being this fast, they may want to slow it down a little bit so that way they can more easily process and be able to follow along a little more. But then you even made the comment on your blog post as far as like, well, this is actually good for speed runners as well. They could just boot it up to the max and they can just zip through anything. Was there any other similar stories like that when you're programming in the accessibility stuff?
A little bit. So like, the Celeste has become the sort of cornerstone for good accessibility design because
Yeah.
they do a bunch of really smart things, especially putting a warning before the assist mode, being like, this is our intentions as designers. These options specifically could break the flow of the game if you don't need them. But if you do need them, they're here. And so I think that's really good. And we have had friends who are like, I had to stop playing the game initially, but now I can continue playing it because I could tweak it ever so slightly, so it would just be manageable.
Yeah.
So that's great. But the other thing that I think weirdly changed the experience for some people was the one-handed options. We
Hmm.
provided some options so that you can play it with just a mouse or just a keyboard or just like one joystick, essentially.
Hmm.
So it would all be using the buttons on that side, which is really useful if somebody only has one hand that they can use to play it. But also, it sort of makes the game a little bit. On mouse and keyboard, the mouse has a lot more fluidity of movement because it can go in any direction, whereas the keyboard is pretty four direction.
Yeah.
And so it sort of feels more fluid to play just with the mouse for some people, even if they don't need to, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about like all accessibility settings is that I think a lot of people miss the fact that like disabilities aren't something that exist outside of the context of the society that you live in. Like they exist within the world that you're in and the accessibility that exists within that. And as a result of that, accessibility settings and assistance can be useful to anyone. Like they don't you don't need like a special card to find them helpful or
Yeah,
to find them like enriching or fulfilling.
Yeah.
Um,
It's all
yeah, and
just
so I think we
about,
found that like it's just useful to everyone, this kind of stuff in different ways and for different people.
yeah,
Um,
at the end of the day, it's about just getting your game to as many people who are interested in it and don't have any type of blockers that would stop them from enjoying the experience, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like it's just the case that like every single person has their own needs, and that like being able to tweak to those needs, regardless of who you are, is really valuable.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the big thing is providing a bunch of sliders and toggles and options so that it can be tailored to the person because
Yeah.
everybody's different.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very cool. So, one of the last couple ones I have here. So, I know right now, Key Fairy is still being developed. The demo is still available, so everyone like go download it right now and go play it. It's great. But what else do players have to look forward to as the game is being developed? Like, is there going to be like a demo 2.0 or anything like that? Or
We're currently debating on the 2.0. Like we are looking forward to Next Fest coming up, which will be our next big thing.
mm-hmm.
As we get nearer and nearer to a release date announcement.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's coming sometime eventually in the future, which
It
is really
is the
exciting.
thing that every demo takes time to make that you could otherwise be spending making the full game, and we're getting quite close to the full game.
Ooh, that's
So
exciting.
we'll have to see. Um, Keep your eyes peeled.
Ooh, excellent. I love a little bit of mystery. Well, perfect. Last thing I have for y'all. So with all your demo work and all of your game developing and everything, I'm assuming you've probably taken some time to kind of relax and take a break. Are there any games in particular that you are all enjoying currently, and what stands out to them as far as being kind of your go-to go-to game?
What have you been playing, Niosis?
Well, I just recently finished all that is currently out for Abiotic Factor, which is a New Zealand game. It's a lot of fun. It's like I had never played Half-Life, but apparently it's like Half-Life, but like if it was kind of immersive sim cross survival sandbox, and it's a lot of fun. Um, Good old crunchy gameplay.
Excellent.
I've been playing 100,000 demos from Steam Next Fest and the Summer Games Festival. There was so many demos from all of our cool, smart friends,
Boy, ain't that the truth.
um, and they're very good.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, I
Um,
know anytime the Steam Next Fest comes up, I try to spend a little bit of time and do like try to do some demo recording as well and try to like play a whole bunch of demos and throw it out onto YouTube and tell people like, hey, go play these games. They look really good. Key
these
Fairy is
Yeah,
demos,
definitely no
lovely.
yeah.
exception.
That's really nice to hear.
Mhm.
Yeah, because there's so much beautiful stuff out there, isn't there?
There is.
So much and not nearly enough time to play and highlight them all. Well, perfect. Anything else either of you two would like to share with our lovely audience before I let you both go?
Well, yes, there is actually.
Mm.
So there is this beautiful game that has been receiving absolutely no attention because Tex never mentions it. But Tex just released a game called Pogo Pogo, and it's very cute. And
I did.
uh,
I cold
ah,
released a game right after we did the Summer Games Festival with Keyfairing.
so if
So
you're looking for a second black and white game to play, there
yeah,
it is.
a
Oh
much
yeah.
smaller, worse game. That's an option. Also, I'm going to shout out a game, so it's not all on me. I think people should play the demo for Building Relationships because I think it's amazing. The game where you're a house going on a date. Mm,
Oh, I remember that one. Okay, yeah, yeah.
it's really good. Mm.
Well, perfect. So again, Neosis, Tex, thank you both so much for taking some time and talking about your game here. I am very much looking forward to full release. I've been kind of chomping at the bit, waiting for some more. I've been hanging out in the Discord, kind of waiting to see all the news or anything like that from it. So I'm excited for a possible release date here coming up soon.
Ooh.
Um,
Keep
and
your eyes peeled, and your ears peeled.
Will do. And for everyone else as well, I will also go ahead and link some of the I'll link the 2 blog posts that I had mentioned before that Tex had wrote up as far as the accessibility journey and kind of going into more of a deep dive for that as well. A lot of good stuff on there. And again, being so open about it, like I think it is refreshing kind of seeing that openness through it as far as like what did that look like going from start to finish, because that's not something that everyone takes the time to do. I think you even mentioned that in the blog post as well. It's like some people only do it as far as like, hey, is it worth doing, right? As far as like a
Yeah.
monetary standpoint, but that's
Yeah.
not always the point. Alrighty, well, we'll go ahead and call it there. Thank you all so much for joining us here, and definitely keep an eye out for any more future interviews, game trailers, and any more game reviews that we'll have here on GameCritics.com. Tex, Niosis, again, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.